So when you hold a smartphone in your hand, you know exactly what you're holding, right?
Yeah, a highly engineered piece of technology.
Exactly. I mean, the glass, the silicon, the coat, it's all designed with this very specific, calculated purpose.
Mostly to capture your attention and trigger dopamine.
Right, and direct your behavior. And we just accept that without question. But then, you step through the heavy wooden doors of a 12th century Gothic cathedral, or you walk into the inner sanctum of an ancient Hindu temple, and, well, the air literally feels different.
The acoustics shift entirely.
Yeah. Your breath slows down, your eyes are instinctively drawn upward, you feel this tangible physiological shift in your consciousness. But we usually just brush that off as like, oh, nice atmosphere or good architecture.
Which is funny because we tend to view the builders of the ancient world with this sort of, well, chronological snobbery.
Totally.
The modern assumption is just that these were primitive people doing their absolute best to make a pretty building to honor their gods, utilizing whatever limited stone stacking tools they happen to have.
And that architectural atmosphere is exactly what we are exploring today in this deep dive. We've got this fascinating fictional manuscript titled The Metaphysical Foundation of the Sacred Arts.
Written by Max and Claude in the voice of the traditionalist philosopher René Guénon.
Right. And your mission today as a listener is to fundamentally change how you look at ancient temples, cathedrals, and icons. Because the premise here is staggering.
It really is a complete paradigm shift.
It is, because what if that cathedral isn't just a pile of beautifully carved old stones? What if it is a literal piece of technology?
Engineered with exact mathematical precision.
Yes. Not to capture your attention for profit like a phone, but to physically elevate your soul.
Well, to even step into this worldview, we have to establish a crucial distinction that has been, honestly, completely lost today.
The difference between religious art and sacred art.
Exactly. I mean, we use those terms interchangeably now. But in this traditional framework that the text lays out, they are worlds apart. So, religious art simply depicts a religious subject. If I paint a picture of a saint or a biblical scene, that's religious art.
Okay.
It might evoke pious feelings, but it's still just a subjective picture. Sacred art, on the other hand, operates on immutable laws.
Wait, laws? Like physics?
Sort of, yeah. It's defined by a direct mathematical correspondence between the physical material world and higher cosmic realities.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because that distinction completely rewrites how we evaluate a painting or a building.
It really does.
Think about modern art or even contemporary religious art. It operates almost entirely like a personal diary entry.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. The entire value of the art rests on self-expression, the artist's unique feelings, their ego, and their individual perspective on the world.
But sacred art is functioning more like a schematic or a mirror.
It's specifically designed to reflect the hidden objective laws of the universe.
And the language that this cosmic schematic is written in is symbolism.
But not symbolism the way we use the word today.
No, not at all. When we say symbol today, we usually mean an arbitrary sign. Take the English word tree.
Right, T-R-E-E.
Exactly. Those letters have no physical, objective connection to actual bark, roots, and leaves. It's just a convention we all agreed on to make communication easier.
Just random sounds we assign to a plant.
Right. But in the traditional worldview outlined in the text, a true symbol is an objective reality. The universe is structured as a strict hierarchy, and a symbol serves as an analogical bridge.
A bridge between what?
Between the dense material world we can touch and a higher spiritual archetype that we can't.
So the symbol actually participates in the reality it represents. It's not just a pointer.
Precisely.
Like, think about water used in a purification ritual. Water physically cleanses dirt from the body. Because it has that physical property, it naturally serves as the perfect objective bridge to the concept of spiritual cleansing.
That's a perfect example. So the artist's job, then, isn't to sit in a studio and invent some cool new avant-garde symbol.
They aren't trying to be clever.
No, their job is to discover the symbols that are already woven into the fabric of reality.
Which completely dismantles our modern obsession with originality and the whole idea of the solitary genius.
Oh, totally. In this traditional view, an artist celebrating their own originality is entirely missing the point. The text argues that the artist must completely efface their ego.
They have to get themselves out of the way.
Exactly. They have to get their personality, their moods, and their subjective opinions out of the way to become a pure, unclouded channel for ours day.
The art of God.
Right? The universe itself is the ultimate work of art, and the human artist is merely reproducing those existing cosmic laws on a different plane of existence.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting to me. If the artist isn't allowed to be creative in the way we understand it today,
Right.
if they can't express their inner turmoil or their unique worldview,
Yeah.
isn't that just mind-numbing mechanical copying? I mean, taking away an artist's right to self-expression sounds incredibly restrictive, almost robotic.
Well, it sounds restrictive to us because we equate freedom with doing whatever we want at any given moment.
Fair point.
But the text calls this process analogical realization, not servile copying. From the traditional perspective, freedom isn't indulging in random, arbitrary fantasy. True freedom is the ability to perfectly align with cosmic law.
How does that work in practice?
Well, imagine a musician tuning an instrument. An out-of-tune guitar string isn't free to play whatever notes it wants, right?
No, it's just producing chaotic noise.
Exactly. The string only achieves its true purpose, its true freedom to make music, when it is tightened to the exact correct frequency.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the traditional artist is tuning themselves to become a flawless instrument for universal truths. Indulging in personal caprice would be seen as a tragic loss of purpose.
A literal detuning of the soul.
Perfectly said.
So if you are going to tune an instrument or build a cosmic blueprint, you need a precise measuring stick. You can't just guess or eyeball the dimensions of a cathedral.
You definitely cannot.
So how do you actually measure the divine?
You measure it through numbers and geometry, which brings that blueprint analogy into sharp, literal focus.
Right.
In sacred art, according to the manuscript, numbers are qualitative, not quantitative.
Meaning what exactly?
Well, today we use numbers just to count things, right? 3 apples, 4 cars. But here, numbers express the fundamental structural nature of reality.
So 1 isn't merely a single unit.
No, it is unity itself. It's the metaphysical center from which everything radiates.
Okay, what about 2?
2 is polarity and complementarity. Think essence and substance, or heaven and earth.
Got it.
3 is the synthesis that reconciles that duality. And 4 represents absolute stability, completion, and the material earth.
Which perfectly explains why the Kaaba in Mecca literally translates to cube.
Exactly.
It isn't just a building that happens to be box-shaped. It is the ultimate architectural manifestation of the number 4 absolute divine stability anchoring the material world.
Yes. And geometric shapes carry that exact same structural weight. The circle represents totality, perfection, and the infinite heavens because it has no beginning and no end.
And the cross.
Well, the cross is widely known as a historical religious emblem, of course, but purely geometrically, it is the intersection of the vertical axis of eternity and the horizontal plane of time.
Wow. And this is where the golden section, or that divine proportion of 1.618, becomes critical, right?
It's absolutely foundational.
Because this is one of those terms that gets thrown around a lot. We hear it's in nautilus shells and pine cones and stuff, but mechanically, why does a ratio of 1.618 matter so much to a builder trying to make a sacred space?
Mechanically, the golden section is the unique mathematical ratio, where the relationship of the smaller part to the larger part is exactly the same as the relationship of the larger part to the whole.
So it's recursive scaling, infinite scaling.
Yes, it allows you to take a massive, overwhelming multiplicity, like millions of individual stones in a cathedral, and bind them together in a way that preserves absolute unity.
So that's why it feels inherently right to the human eye.
Because it is the exact same math that governs the growth of our own bones and the arrangement of leaves on a stem.
It bridges the gap. The human body is viewed here as a microcosm, right? Like a miniature universe.
Exactly.
So when we look at the ancient Egyptian, Greek, or Hindu canons of proportion, we often think, wow, they were really stiff. They didn't know how to draw realistic human anatomy.
But they weren't trying to draw a biological human, as seen by the ordinary eye.
Right. They were intentionally using these mathematical ratios to reflect cosmic hierarchies.
They were representing essences, not appearances. They were drawing the human being as an archetype.
Which kind of forces us to confront the modern assumption that beauty is entirely in the eye of the beholder.
It really challenges that idea.
Because we are taught from a young age that beauty is subjective. Right? Like, you might like modern minimalism, I might like Baroque realism, and both are equally valid.
But the manuscript argues the opposite.
So what happens to the concept of beauty when every single line is dictated by rigid cosmic math?
Beauty becomes objective. In this framework, beauty is defined as splendor forme, the splendor of form.
The splendor
Right.
formula.
It is the natural, unavoidable radiance of a thing when it perfectly realizes its essential nature.
Do you have an example?
Think of an acorn. If it grows in terrible soil with no light, it becomes a stunted, twisted little sapling.
Right.
But if it grows in perfect conditions, it becomes a massive, symmetrical, towering oak. That oak possesses splendor formae because it is perfectly realized oakness.
Oh, I see.
Therefore, a building constructed using the golden section is objectively more perfect and objectively more beautiful because it aligns with the actual mathematical reality of the cosmos.
So modern, chaotic architecture that deliberately violates proportion just to be edgy or disruptive.
It isn't viewed as just a different stylistic choice. The text views it as a metaphysical lie.
A metaphysical lie. Wow, that is a heavy label.
It really is.
But let's ground this in the dirt and the dust of an actual medieval construction site. You have this pure, divine math, but a blueprint is just an idea on paper or parchment, right?
Right.
How does a flawed, sinful human being actually cut the stone and build these structures without corrupting that perfect math with their own ego? I mean, they didn't have lasers or computer-aided drafting.
The mechanism for transferring of that perfection into physical reality is the traditional craftsman. And they operated within what the text calls operative initiation.
Operative initiation, what is that?
Well, we look at traditional craft guilds, like the medieval European masons, the Hindu sampradaya, or the Islamic futuwa.
And we just think of them as early labor unions or trade schools.
Exactly. But they were actually esoteric brotherhoods. They guarded spiritual secrets, not just economic trade secrets.
But how does building a wall involve a spiritual secret?
Through that concept of operative initiation, it's the understanding that mastering a physical craft is the exact same mechanism as spiritual discipline.
Wait, really? The exact same?
Yes. The raw piece of stone pulled from the quarry represents the craftsman's own chaotic, unrefined psychic substance. Their ego, their base desires, their lack of focus.
Oh, wow.
So the brutal, repetitive process of cutting, shaping, and smoothing that physical stone over years and years, it directly corresponds to the craftsman purifying their own soul.
That is incredible.
Even the tools themselves, the square, the compass, the chisel, are not just chunks of iron. They were physical symbols of spiritual correction.
It's just like traditional martial arts training.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Yeah. You force a student to do 1,000 basic stances before they ever learn a complex strike. The repetitive physical movements are actively reprogramming their nervous system.
Yes, exactly.
Except here, you aren't just perfecting a punch, you're building a cathedral. You aren't just making a clay pot, the pot is making you. The external physical work is the exact mechanism for your internal spiritual elevation.
The external work and the internal work are inextricably linked. A traditional apprentice spent years just repeating basic operations to cultivate humility, patience, and total submission to the cosmic order.
Because you can't force a piece of granite to do something it doesn't want to do.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
You have to understand its grain, its nature, and submit to it. Only a craftsman who has achieved that internal stillness is capable of executing the sacred geometry without injecting their own ego into the stone.
Okay, so you have a craftsman whose ego is out of the way, and you have the geometric blueprint. What happens when that pure math collides with physical materials?
That's where it gets really sensory.
Because they aren't using drywall, plastic, and fluorescent tubes.
Okay.
They are using materials that are supposed to hack human consciousness.
Right, and they utilize what's called the doctrine of qualities.
Meaning?
In the traditional worldview, matter is not dead, inert stuff just waiting to be manipulated. Materials have inherent spiritual correspondences based on their physical properties.
Okay, give me an example.
Stone is incredibly dense and enduring, so it naturally represents eternal permanence and divine stability. Wood grows vertically from the earth toward the sky, so it represents the living, organic axis linking heaven and earth.
And gold.
Gold doesn't tarnish or rust, and it reflects light perfectly, making it the physical embodiment of divine, incorruptible light.
So the architect doesn't choose materials based on what is cheap, lightweight, or easy to ship.
Not at all. They choose them based on the specific spiritual function that part of the building needs to perform.
Let's talk about how they manipulate light, too, because stained glass in a Gothic cathedral is one of the most profound examples of this technology.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just there to look pretty or tell a Bible story to people who can't read. It is functioning as a literal filter.
Yes.
Raw, blinding physical sunlight, which represents pure, overwhelming divine essence, hits the exterior of the church. The stained glass catches it, steps down the frequency, and transforms it into spiritual illumination that the human eye can actually process.
And the colors they use are doing heavy lifting too.
Really? Like how?
The colors are executing specific metaphysical jobs. Red glass transmits active, masculine, expanding energy. Blue glass transmits passive, receptive, contractive energy.
Wow.
By arranging these colors in specific geometric patterns, the architects physically manipulate the eye and the mood of the person walking down the nave.
That is mind-blowing. And I know this manipulation extends heavily into the realm of sound and language as well, right?
Yes, the sacred word is a foundational technology in these traditions.
So languages like Sanskrit, Hebrew, and Arabic aren't viewed as just historical accidents of human communication.
No, the text sees them as divine blueprints. The phonetic sounds, the geometry, the calligraphy, the grammatical structure, they carry objective spiritual power.
So when a sacred text is chanted in its original language, it isn't just about understanding the meaning of the words.
Right. The sonic vibrations themselves, the actual acoustic frequencies bouncing off those stone walls, are designed to resonate with and tune the subtle levels of the human nervous system.
You can physically feel it in your chest.
You really can.
Like the slow, measured pace of a Gregorian chant reverberating through a stone vault, or the mathematically pure, infinitely expanding geometric patterns of an Islamic mosque. They are actively manipulating your perception of time.
They absolutely are.
They pull you out of profane time, which is hurried, chaotic, and tied to your daily anxieties.
And they drop you into sacred time, which is eternal and still.
It forces your resting heart rate to literally match a cosmic rhythm.
Exactly.
So if these environments are highly tuned spiritual technologies designed to elevate us, what happens to us when our modern environment is filled with the exact opposite?
That is the ultimate crisis described in the text.
Because we are surrounded by cheap drywall, fluorescent lights, fast, dissonant music, and chaotic architectural layouts driven entirely by maximizing square footage.
The cost is profound harm to our ontology, our very state of being and how we exist in the world.
Because we are a microcosm.
Right. Because the human being is a microcosm, we are deeply porous to our environment. When we are constantly surrounded by chaotic utilitarian forms that violate cosmic proportions, it disrupts our internal harmony.
We absorb that chaos.
We do. The text argues it induces anxiety, alienation, and a sense of meaninglessness, precisely because the structures around us are projecting a metaphysical lie.
So how did we lose the blueprints? What happens when a society completely unplugs this technology and forgets how to build it?
Well, the shift didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual historical deviation, primarily taking place in the West.
Okay.
It wasn't just a change in style. It was a fundamental change in the human mindset. During the Renaissance, the invention of linear perspective was pivotal.
How so?
Suddenly, the vanishing point of a painting was located inside the eye of the human observer, rather than originating from God. Man literally became the measure of all things.
The anonymous craftsman dedicated to cosmic law was replaced by the celebrity genius dedicated to their own glory.
The ego enters the chat. Then comes Protestant iconoclasm, which actively destroyed and stripped away sensible sacred forms, arguing that the physical world couldn't house the divine.
Which paved the way for the Enlightenment.
Exactly. Enlightenment rationalism completely severed empirical science from metaphysics. Matter became dead stuff to be analyzed and exploited, not a symbol to be read.
And finally, this trajectory arrives at modern abstract art,
which in this traditional framework is seen as the complete dissolution of form itself, the absolute triumph of chaos over cosmic order.
But this deviation was primarily in the West.
Yes. The manuscript notes that the Oriental traditions, Hindu, Buddhist, Islamic, managed to better preserve that unbroken chain of traditional transmission for much longer, keeping the initiatic structures and metaphysical knowledge largely intact despite modern pressures.
Which brings us to a really fascinating dilemma for the West today. We have all these incredible artifacts, but the authentic traditional context is gone.
Yes, the museum paradox.
Right, we try to save them by putting them in museums. But taking a consecrated icon out of a church and putting it behind temperature-controlled glass with a little placard next to it.
It completely strips it of its ritual function.
It turns a living, breathing vehicle of grace into a dead historical artifact.
And even aggressively cleaning a sacred object to restore it to its original pristine condition is viewed as destructive.
Because you are stripping away the historical patina of veneration, the layers of incense smoke, the oils from thousands of hands touching it over centuries.
Exactly. That patina is the physical record of the object functioning as a spiritual bridge. Erasing it to make the object look brand new prioritizes an aesthetic historical curiosity over its spiritual reality.
But let me push back on this a little.
Sure.
If an ancient, beautiful cathedral is crumbling, shouldn't we try to preserve it exactly as it was built? I mean, isn't the museum mindset the desire to protect and freeze these masterpieces, saving them from being destroyed by time, weather, or ignorance?
That is the ultimate defense of the modern historical mindset, for sure. But the traditional mindset operated entirely differently.
How did they handle it?
A sacred building was a living space. If a temple's roof collapsed or a wall crumbled, traditional cultures didn't rope it off as a ruin to be studied.
Oh, they didn't?
No, they favored rebuilding it, organically updating it so it could continue its sacred function for the community.
Okay, that makes sense.
Freezing an object in time, placing it under a gallery spotlight where it can only be looked at by tourists but never used for prayer, ritual, or contemplation. The text views that as a profound profanation.
So the physical form might be perfectly preserved, but the spirit has been evacuated.
Exactly.
It's exactly like taking the engine out of a classic car and mounting it in a glass case in your living room.
Oh, perfect analogy.
It looks exactly the same. You can admire the engineering, but it is never going to take you anywhere ever again. Its fundamental purpose is dead.
The realization here is that we cannot simply turn back the clock. We can't magically restore the traditional civilization of the 12th century.
Right.
But we can strive to understand the mechanics of these principles. We can recognize sacred art for what it truly is, a highly engineered convergence of metaphysical doctrine, symbolic form, and spiritual realization.
So synthesizing this entire journey, whether you agree with the manuscript's harsh critique of the modern world or not, this deep dive offers a profound new lens on the world around us.
It really does. It changes how you see everything.
It asks us to walk into an ancient space and see not just primitive decoration by people who didn't know better, but a highly sophisticated mathematical language of stone, glass, sound, and geometry.
A literal technology specifically designed to elevate human consciousness and act as a mirror to the cosmos.
And when you hold your smartphone, you know it's a technology designed to capture you. But I want to leave you with this final provocative thought.
Think about the space you're in right now.
Yeah, look around the room you are in right now. Almost every manufactured object you see reflects modern priorities, efficiency, cheapness, and mass production. But imagine what your daily life would feel like, how your own mind might change if just one object you used every single day was crafted not for profit, but to be a perfect mathematical mirror of the universe. What would that object be?